Hi, I'm Anthony for Sydney Backyard Veggies, just out over at my main brassica bed this afternoon, and I need to start doing a bit of work on my cabbages. Now, these cabbages were planted about 2.5 months ago and they are starting to form up their heads, but now is the time for me to come through, do some maintenance work on them, add a bit more fertilizer, and just to check to make sure that they're being set up well for their growth throughout winter to form their heads. So I'm going to come through and show you where I'm at and get started. So this is my brassica patch in my main bed. This was planted out in early March, and I've got a video up online which I'll add a link to the description notes of when I planted this bed out. Now again, just as a recap, this is the cauliflower patch, and I've got my two cabbage varieties. I've got my red cabbage, which is called the Red Queen, and I've got my green cabbage, which is green coronet. And then coming across is my broccoli patch, which I've been harvesting progressively over the last week or so. Today I'm going to be concentrating on my cabbage patches, and these here I've got 3 rows of the green coronet, 2 rows of my red queen cabbages. These are at a point where they are now starting to form a head, and they're just still quite young still. They've probably still got another 2.5 months to go before I'll be harvesting them, but now is the right time for me to start doing a bit of work on these plants and adding the next stage of fertilizer. I did add a bit of fertilizer at about 4 weeks of age, but now this is their second round of fertilizer that's needed. So I'm going to come through here and add my fertilizer, but before I do that, I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to something. Is that as these plants grow, as you can see, their leaves start getting quite big, and the plants, although they're planted at 40 centimeter spacings, they actually do start out competing each other. And the key here now is at the moment is to come through and remove a lot of these what I would call redundant leaves at the bottom, and just give the plants a little bit more space to grow and breathe. So what I'm going to come and do is come through and clear a lot of those leaves at the lower levels. And I've got a few tools I've got to grab to start doing that, and I'll show how I do that. So coming to my first cabbage, and what I need to do is actually come through, and what I'm looking at is just trying to remove a lot of these lower leaves just to clear them out here all the way around. And the idea there is that these actually aren't producing anything of value. If anything, the fact they're touching the floor means that there'll just be points where caterpillars and slugs will climb into the head. So just using my pruners, just going to be removing just a lot of these lower leaves, and these won't get wasted. These will go to the chickens and get eaten, but what I'm just trying to do is just trying to remove a lot of those lower leaves that are causing trouble more than anything else. There you go. So as again all done. Now I'll quickly show you what the final result looks like. I'll bring you closer and show you. So that's been pruned now, and as you can see, none of the leaves are on the floor. Now there are a few ones around that I need to get rid of, the ones next door, but what it does is it actually just lifts that plant off the floor, and I would argue it allows it to breathe more, allows the airflow to go through the plant to really stay on top of any of those diseases that you may get. But that looking really good. I'm going to continue on and start cleaning up the rest of these, and I'll show you the end result. So I just finished pruning off these cabbages, and see if you can see behind me, it actually looks like a lot more space. The plants can breathe a lot more, and they're not as crowded out. So these look great now, and I might come and do that again in about 4 to 6 weeks time as well, just clear that second round of leaves just to make sure we're not having any bacteria or diseases coming from the ground, likewise any slugs. I'm going to go now and start fertilizing. Before that I do that, I'll show you what I'm going to use on these plants today. To fertilize my cabbages, I provide 2 applications of fertilizer. At 4 weeks of age, I'd applied sulfate of ammonia to the plants, and the idea there was to give them a big strong boost of nitrogen in that early growing stage, so they could respond to and put on size before the cool weather sets in and the cooler soils. Now that they've started to form heads, I still want to apply fertilizer to them, but I'm actually going to switch my fertilizer. Rather than add more sulfate of ammonia, I am going to apply chicken manure pellets. This is dynamic lifter. The idea here is it still has enough added nitrogen to keep the plants going, but also has a good mix of phosphorus and potassium, which cabbages do respond well to. I will apply this a small amount at the base of each plant, and the idea then is as I'm irrigating, the chicken manure pellets will break down slowly and feed those plants for the next 4 to 6 weeks, at which point I may apply a third application of chicken manure pellets, depending on how they're doing. So to apply my fertilizer, I'm just with my scoop, just gently at the base of each of the plants. You can just see that. I'm just going to give it a slight pour of fertilizer, and that's sufficient. It sits on the irrigation, so it will melt, it will dissolve as the water runs, and it will just slowly feed those plants. And continuing on, I'll just add just that much to the base, and I'll continue through, and I'll keep adding the fertilizer to the base of each of these plants. One last thing I need to do for these cabbages, to apply a round of pyrethrum to them. I do struggle a lot with cabbage moth larvae, especially in the warmer months, and now that it's cooled down a bit, the insect pressure has fallen off, but they still are around, and it can do a lot of damage if not kept in check. Now, for my context, I find spraying is the best way. And I tend to spray in the late afternoon when there are no bees or other beneficial insects around. But what I'll do is I'll apply pyrethrum once a week, especially when I'm seeing a lot of damage on the plants. I may extend that to 2 weeks if I'm not seeing any damage. And it's essentially just spraying it on, applying it, and that's enough to keep those insects at bay. So now that I've sprayed and fertilized my cabbages, they're set to go now. I'll just let them be. I'll keep monitoring them, especially for slugs and snails at this stage. We've been getting a lot of rain here in Sydney, and the risk is that you run a lot of damage with slugs, especially if they get into the head as it's forming. These will potentially need a second application of fertilizer in about 6 weeks time, depending on how they grow over the next few weeks. Harvest in, thinking start of July, I might start harvesting these. You can really harvest them at any stage, but I like to try to get them to get a bit bigger. But early July is when I'm looking at starting to start harvesting these heads. Yeah, really happy with that. They're looking really, really good, and I'm really happy that I got them in early, so they had that good chance to start growing in size before the cooler weather set in. And before I wrap up this video, I just wanted to quickly show you what I'm doing over the next week. I've started raising my next round of winter seedlings. So just bringing you across here, I've got my Chinese cabbage, my second plant of Chinese cabbage seedlings right there, along with a bit of Chinese broccoli here. This is my next planting of broccoli seedlings, and they're doing really, really well, and they should be ready in about a week's time. I've also started a few pak choi seedlings, which I'll be interplanting between the brassicas, and I'm trying to grow a few cos lettuce seedlings, which they seem to be doing okay in this punnet. I've grown a next round of pea seeds. These are my sugar snaps, and they need to get planted out this weekend. But because I didn't have a chance earlier, I've gotten my second planting of cabbage seedlings. I actually bought these from the shops. A little bit of silver beet and kale, and there's a few spring onions. Now, I bought seedlings rather than grew cabbage seedlings because I was going to run out of time, so they'll get in the ground this weekend. But besides that, really happy how it's going. I will start off another round of broccoli once those seedlings go in the ground. But besides that, winter planting is going full ball in my patch. Thank you very much everyone for joining me in my cart, and I really appreciate all the support. I'm hoping that your winter patch is as productive as mine, and I hope you get a few tips and pointers from my workings in my patch, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you.